17, on the loose. Senior trip with your friends in Paris, 10 days in the springtime. Live it up, Alex. You got your whole life ahead of you.
Death stalks you at every turn!
The Final Destination franchise is one that relishes in noticing and interpreting visual clues that foreshadow the deaths of its characters. Since plots and narratives tend to be about cause and effect, what might we learn from a franchise that makes it their raison d'etre? The themes of fate and choice are prevalent throughout the film, but the first 10 pages has its primary focus on setting the mood and foreshadowing the coming disaster through cleverly niche visual symbolism and dramatic irony. So let's take a look at the intricately woven web of fate and see if we, like our condemned protagonists, can figure out death's designs.
It was an accident.
In death, there are no accidents.
It's not an opinion, it's barely an analysis, it's just the first 10 pages.
Alex Browning is headed to Paris for his class's senior year trip. Before the plane can take off, he has a premonition of it exploding on the runway, killing everyone on board. He tries to warn them, but gets in a fight with his classmates, causing him and 6 other people to be kicked off the plane. His best friend Todd, future love interest Clear, jock archetype Carter and his girlfriend Terry, slacker Billy, and their teacher Miss Luton. When his vision comes true, everyone is shocked and becomes wary of Alex, including the FBI. A month later, following a memorial service for their fellow classmates, Todd slips in the shower and accidentally strangles himself to death. Todd's death is ruled as a suicide, despite Alex's insistence otherwise, which is noted by the FBI. Alex confesses to Clear that he feels a sinister presence stalking him, so she takes him to Todd's body and meets the mortician, William Bloodworth. He tells them that death is after them, upset that they have messed with his design.
Your friend's departure shows that death has a new design for all of you.
Alex believes that they need to watch for the signs that hint at death's design. Carter arrives to beat him up, and Terry, infuriated by this, decides to walk away, getting hit by a bus. Alex sees a news report that shows the order the survivors would have died had they stayed on the plane, deducing that this is the order in which they'll now die. He sees that Miss Luton is next, and goes over to her house. Unfortunately, it freaks her out so much that she calls the FBI, who detains Alex. Luton starts up a sequence of events that leads to her being surrounded by fire with a knife in her stomach. Despite Alex arriving to help her, she dies just before her house explodes, inadvertently making himself the lead suspect in the FBI's case. Clear, Carter, and Billy meet up to find Alex, since he'll know which one of them is next. Clear finds him first and gives her own opinions on death,
Then fuck death.
before reuniting with Carter and Billy. When Alex explains that death is coming for them, Carter tries to take fate into his own hands and stops his car on the train tracks. At the last minute, he decides against it, and despite the car not starting and the seatbelt not unbuckling, he is saved by Alex. The car is destroyed, and Billy is decapitated from the debris. Alex assumes that he's next on the list, but after he reads an article that shows 2 of his other classmates, he realizes that he got the order wrong, and runs off to save the next person on the list, Clear. Evading her own death traps, Clear finds herself trapped in a car, with a power cable that ignites gas around it. Alex, evading the FBI, arrives just in time to save her. 6 months later, Alex, Clear, and Carter all travel to Paris to toast their survival. But Alex is uneasy, since he fears that death is still after him. A bus crashes into a sign that almost kills him, but Carter saves him, only to fall victim to the sign himself. Since the title is like a quick introduction to the script itself, it only makes sense to talk about it. The original title for the script was Flight 180, more on the number 180 later, but the official title became Final Destination, which is used by airline travel personnel to refer to the ultimate location where something or someone is intended to arrive or end up. It's pretty fitting since an airplane is the big disaster of this movie, but here it carries a second meaning, like most of the symbols in the script. Death is often referred to as the end and is a state of being to which everything must succumb. It is the final destination. The script begins with a paragraph that would make Thanos proud, talking about the inevitability of death, despite our best efforts to avoid it. The basic premise of this franchise is that death is coming for you, so this is a very apt paragraph. Then a song begins to play, and When I Die by Blood, Sweat, and Tears. The title alone evokes the whole death vibe, but the lyrics go into more detail. Here comes the devil right behind. Look out, children, here he comes. I'm not scared of dying, and I really don't care. If it's peace you find in dying, well then let that time be near. Alex Browning is already scared of dying, or at the very least flying as the story starts. But the implication is that death is near, and you'll only find relief from its relentless pursuit when it catches you. The script shows a flash of lightning and a crack of thunder transitioning us to the next scene, where we open on an airline ticket. Right away, we are told the plane will hold some significance to the story, and given that this is a horror movie, it's likely telling us the plane is going to crash. The script then draws attention to a table fan. Most of the deaths in these films are elaborate Rube Goldberg machines that act on cause and effect. One of Death's key moves in this series is a gentle gust of wind that knocks things over. So the fan could be foreshadowing that. Pulling double duty though, it is also the same fan that will reveal the clue about Todd's impending death to Alex. Speaking of whom, 17-year-old Alex is packing for a trip, and the script focuses on a guidebook for Paris atop the plane ticket. Evidently, the young man is going to Paris for his graduation trip. As the fan oscillates back and forth, it causes the pages of the guidebook to flip open to random images. First up is a guillotine, probably foreshadowing Billy Hitchcock's death. The majority of the first page is doing what good horror movies do, establish tone and mood. It borrows from Jaws, where there's no dialogue present, just visuals, allowing us the opportunity to focus on them in an attempt to decipher what they mean. The fan turns the pages of the guidebook to the painting Lying in the State of Saint Bonaventure by Francisco de Zuberan. The painting illustrates the Italian bishop being laid to rest. Basically, the fan blowing the guidebook open to this specific painting tells us that something seemingly innocuous will result in death. No small clue can be overlooked.
Are you watching closely?
The pages begin to turn once again, and Alex steps in front of the fan, blocking its breeze. This is important, since Alex's major goal throughout the movie is to interrupt Death's design and save his life as well as the lives of his friends. So we are going to stop here to discuss a small paradox with these movies. More often than not, intervention causes the deaths. While it's true that the envisioners do see the peril and prevent it from happening to several people, many subsequent attempts to save them typically result in them dying anyway. Alex fails to save Todd initially, but thinks that he can see and therefore stop the pattern. Because he's at the cafe with Clear trying to convince her of this, Carter swings by and Terry's killed by a bus, due to her hatred for how Carter is acting around Alex. Because Alex was skulking around Luton's house, she got freaked out by a mug, and that caused the chain of events that led to her death. By trying to convince the others that death is coming for them, Carter's desperation for control leads him to stop his car on the train tracks, causing his car to be destroyed and resulting in Billy's death. And if Alex hadn't brought up the list in Paris, Carter wouldn't have mocked him, causing him to freak out and need saving, resulting in Carter's death. More often than not in the series, the direct intervention of the characters only results in their demise, which illustrates the focal point of the film. No matter what choices you make, death is inevitable.
And you don't even want to fuck with that, Mac Daddy.
Continuing the script, the fan blows the guidebook to a page on Jim Morrison's tomb. Aside from the obvious tomb and death parallel, Jim Morrison died in Paris and is a member of the 27 Club, a group of musicians who died prematurely when they were 27 years old. To further emphasize Morrison's symbolic importance here, "This is the end" is spray painted across his tomb. We get a proper introduction to Alex here, being called a high school everyman, directly telling us how normal and ordinary he is. You could even argue that he's set up this way so that he's easily dismissed by his colleagues, which explains why only 6 of them would get off the plane instead of the whole class. Alex's mom, Barbara, enters the room and drops some exposition about his friends, the brothers Todd and George, and how they're going to JFK Airport. His dad, Ken, comes in asking about his suitcase, and we get the first real sign of Alex's character. He's superstitious.
Yeah, it's like, Tay made the last flight without the plane crashing or anything, so I figured it's got to be on the bag, or at least with the bag. For luck.
We're already on edge about the plane crashing, and Alex all but confirms that it will here. Because, in these kind of films, the superstitious character, whether for comedic or dramatic effect, is frequently proven justified. To the script's point, this shows the importance of little stuff and how it can lead to a big problem. After judging her husband for giving Alex his superstitious ideas, Barbara does indeed remove the tag, punctuated with slow-mo, emphasizing it being beyond Alex's control. Ken's next couple lines are,
Live it up, Alex. You got your whole life ahead of you.
This is a clear case of dramatic irony, which occurs when the audience is privy to information that the characters in universe aren't, creating a sense of tension or suspense. We know the ominous nature of this line because we've already surmised that the plane is going to crash, so the idea that Alex will live it up is likely not going to happen. And even when Alex does get to go to Paris, he causes Carter's death after narrowly avoiding his own. The scene transitions to later when Alex is sleeping and the storm outside has subsided, likely meant to evoke the calm before the storm. The action describes the camera moving around, like a presence in the dark. Then a school pendant flutters as though affected by a breeze and blows Alex's hair, causing him to shiver from the cold. He stirs awake and notices, which will be revealed at the top of page 4, that the windows are closed and the fan is off. The breeze is coming from nowhere, hinting at a supernatural cause. The other thing this scene is meant to do is reinforce the idea of cause and effect. The breeze blows on Alex, so he wakes up. And we already know that he's paranoid, so the idea that it's supernatural is going to get under his skin and inform his character throughout the rest of the film. As previously mentioned, the windows are closed and the fan is turned off, so Alex is, understandably, confused as to where the breeze came from. He looks over to his clock, which reads 1 a.m., with a flickering light transforming it into the number 180. Thanks to the airline ticket, we already know that Alex's flight number is 180, so this is just reminding us of that. But since the script was originally called Flight 180, some may wonder why that number specifically. If you really want to read into it, like our superstitious protagonist, here are a couple possible theories to consider about the number 180. 180 degrees is an exact half circle, perhaps referring to a half-life or an interrupted cycle, the former referring to the premature deaths of our characters, and the latter being about cheating death's design. Pulling a 180 means to completely change your mind, which could symbol repentance, but most of the characters following Luton's death decide to start believing Alex's paranoia to save themselves, changing their minds instantly after doubting him before. The script takes us to the John F. Kennedy Airport, where Alex and his classmates are going to be boarding the plane to Paris, and where we'll spend the remainder of these first 10 pages. There are 3 major commercial airports in New York City: JFK, LaGuardia, and Newark. Therefore, the fact that these kids are getting on the one named after a president who was infamously assassinated, which is a premature death, is likely not an accident. Several of the kids are gathered in the terminal, including Alex's friends Todd and George, all the while avoiding solicitors. The script tells us that any psychic tension from last night is gone. Friends are a great way to reduce anxiety, but the word psychic is an interesting choice since Billy will later think that Alex can see the future. And he kinda can. And Luton is so creeped out by them that he physically repulses her. The page closes by telling us that Mr. Murnau is trying to get the attention of the class. The description says, the French teacher. Any further description necessary? So, Final Destination is a horror movie franchise, and terrible things are going to happen to these characters on screen. But it's kinda got a sick sense of humor to it too. So, I believe that this is meant to be a moment of levity in an otherwise grim script. The airport PA says, "Passengers, you do not need to contribute," possibly referring to Alex's interference in Death's plan, as well as his interference often leading to more death. Todd and George's dad hugs them goodbye, asking Alex to take care of them. While this does establish a degree of trustworthiness in Alex, it's also another example of dramatic irony. Firstly, because both Todd and George will die by the end of the film, and the audience is probably aware of that. Secondly, because Alex will put it upon himself to take care of his fellow survivors, viewing it as his responsibility to save them. We then get introduced to Clear Rivers, reading Tropic of Cancer, wearing colors that go against the sincerity of her sex appeal, and appearing more worldly than the other students. The rest of the page beyond her is just Todd and George being brothers and Mr. Murnau asking for his class's attention, but there is actually quite a bit to Clear's character, so we're going to dive into that. She introduces Alex to Bloodworth later in the movie, showing that she's familiar with death. But in the script and the deleted scenes, Clear and Alex will have sex before the third act. Before their union, Clear will reveal her history with death to Alex and proclaims,
"And fuck death."
When they have sex, it's unprotected. And though Alex protests, with the effort of twisting a rubber arm, Clear replies that nothing is safe anymore. The script will call their lovemaking an act reflecting the defiance of death and not worrying about its inevitability. This results in Clear getting pregnant and giving birth to a child, saving her and Carter from death, with Alex having died during the original ending, as they had brought new life in to disrupt Death's design, a plot point retconned in Bloodlines. Basically, she's an optimistic nihilist, a bittersweet light in the dark. This is further proven by the book she's reading, Tropic of Cancer, notorious for its candid sexuality. While the book supposedly challenged the preconceived impressions of women, thereby hinting that Clear is different, the subtext of her reading it is that she is different. In most movies of this fashion, sex is a sin and a one-way ticket to death. In this movie, or at least in the original script, Clear wields her sexuality like a sword, cutting through Death's design and inspiring Alex, saving hers and Carter's life. Plus, it's refreshing that, for once, sex saves the day rather than being a ticket to death. Or would have had it stayed in the film. The airport makes a third announcement relating to beggars or solicitors before we get introduced to Carter. He's described as the class dickhead who mixes and matches his role models in a superficial manner, implying that he's a superficial character. Digging a little deeper, this does tell us how Carter will deal with the rest of the movie, with a surface-level thought process.
I'm never gonna die. And now she's gotta move.
All because of Brownie!
All right, then why bother? What, intervene? What are you, God now? But I am the safest fucker in the world because you're still next.
His emotions are also always on the surface, hence why he attacks Alex when he has no reason to, and even attempts to control his own fate after Terry's death, saying, "At least we'll be together." Speaking of Terry, she's also introduced here with a description saying hot now, but no idea what time will do to her in just 5 years. A bit optimistic for this script, sure, but the dread of the future giving her anxiety? Ugh, that's relatable. The past few pages have been mentioning solicitors a lot, and it pays off here with a group of Hare Krishnas trying to hand out pamphlets, promoting death is not the end. An interesting notion since Alex's premonition of death ends on page 17 out of a 109-page script. Therefore, death isn't the end of the film. There are also a great many philosophies and religions that posit death is not the end of existence, but rather just the mortal coil bound to the earth. But those solicitors better beware, because now we get introduced to Valerie Luton, who tells the solicitors that death will be their end if they continue harassing her students. The irony of this line is that Luton clearly cares about her students, but the disaster will cause her to become incapable of being around them, resulting in her needing to move away. And it's because of her fear of Alex that she inadvertently causes her own death. After Luton's threat to them, the solicitor replies with Hare Rama, which is a Hindu mantra used to call the divine energy and purify consciousness. It's probably another instance of dramatic irony since we know what's about to befall these characters. Luton, however, is unfazed and tells them to fuck off, a hint about her attitude towards Alex later in the film.
Don't talk to me, you scared the hell out of me.
The majority of this entire sequence at the airport, leading up to getting on the plane, is just about building tension, particularly this page where Alex experiences the sound of the world around him at an exaggerated volume, even when the ticket clerk is trying to talk to him. He looks at the departure board and sees the word cancelled, likely referring to how his trip to Paris will be, in a certain sense, cancelled. Later on, he sees the word departed on the board, a further hint at his inevitable fate. Alex continues to stare at the board, considering the messages. The calling card, as it were, of the Final Destination saga is the symbols of death's design, which foreshadow the fate of the characters. Alex must consider these messages if he hopes to escape the plan. The ticket clerk asks if Alex has any packages from persons he doesn't know, and shows her the Reality Beyond Matter pamphlet from the Hare Krishnas, once again reinforcing the idea of life after death and the huge disaster being the inciting incident of the film. Mirroring an earlier moment, the clerk puts a new tag on Alex's luggage, and he hopes that it's good luck. Then, the clerk has a cute moment where she notes that the departure time is the same as Alex's birthday. This is something I have genuinely done in my years of customer service, so this feels like a realistic moment. But it's probably meant to imply that what's about to happen to Alex and his classmates is not a coincidence, especially considering that it's his departure time, which is an innocuous thing given weight because of the dramatic irony. The sign that Alex is looking at flashes to terminal, which means It's actually a little weird how many common phrases at an airport also work as synonyms for death, and I'm betting that the writers were keenly aware of that. Their bags go through an X-ray machine and we get introduced to our last principal character, Billy Hitchcock, whose first line emphasizes that Carter is a dick by protesting when Carter gets in front of him. This probably implies that Carter's position in death's queue will directly affect Billy, in more ways than one. So far, this movie has painted its characters into standard teen comedy archetypes, and Todd is falling into a common one, caring only about getting closer to a girl he likes. He, somehow, convinced the ticket clerk to get his crush to sit next to him. Alex will determine that his premonition was real because the two girls ask him to switch seats so they can sit together, and switching seats also shows him the faulty knob on the table. Alex will also remember before the climax that he never switched seats with these two, which means that he got the order of death wrong, compelling him to go rescue Clear. The girls in question, Krista and Blake, are introduced as attractive and they know it, and out of Alex and Todd's league. Perhaps that's just another nail in the coffin to how doomed these teens are. But I digress since Todd decides to say an incredibly dark line. If we don't get someone going on this flight, we should just call Dr. Kevorkian and put ourselves out of our misery. For those who don't know, Dr. Kevorkian was an American pathologist who advocated for physician-assisted suicide. So while Todd is being super dramatic, he's also saying that if he can't win Blake over by the end of the flight, he's going to die. Interestingly enough, since, in the premonition, Alex does switch seats, forcing Todd to sit next to him instead of Blake, they all do die. But there is also the fact that most people assume that Todd's death was a suicide, and this line foreshadows that. The script continues as Alex and Todd walk through a metal detector. A song plays that may as well be the franchise's theme, Oingo Boingo's No One Lives Forever. Obviously, the title of the song alone hints at their coming fate, but some of the lyrics are also relevant to the characters themselves, which are reflected in Bloodworth's later warnings. You worry too much, you make yourself sad, you can't change fate. Dancing while the Grim Reaper cuts. We've only got so many tricks. No one beats him at his game, there's no place safe to hide, 'cause any second it may end. Taken out of context, the lyrics are cryptic, warning our characters that death is after them. He's malicious, and you can't stop him, no matter how clever or tricky you are. The page ends with the teenagers going about their usual activities, the parent and teacher chaperones hoping they'll tire themselves out so they can have a peaceful flight. But then we get a clever reveal.
Clear is the one listening to No One Lives Forever on her Walkman.
Clear will later say fuck death in defiance of the phenomenon, and the song's nihilistically optimistic attitude is evocative of that. So it's probably not a coincidence that Clear is the one listening to that song. Clear puts her stuff down on the seat beside her, dropping her Paris guidebook. Alex picks it up and hands it back to her, probably meaning to signify their connection, the reason for which is why Clear gets off the plane, as she explains to him later. The script goes over a picture of Princess Diana's destroyed car, in which her and her lover died. The script continues to emphasize the importance of visual symbolism to the reader. After this moment, Clear begins to feel uneasy, further pushing her connection to Alex. Meanwhile, Alex looks out the window, gazing at the plane, ominously described as something we unquestioningly trust our lives in. That is a good line for this franchise. It is the mundane and overlooked details that lead to the characters' deaths.
How do we know? Just by sitting here, by sipping this coffee, or breathing the air, or even crossing the intersection that we haven't started in motion. The events that will someday lead to our death 40 years from now, 10 years from now, tomorrow.
Todd is shaving when he dies, Terry is yelling at her boyfriend, Luton is packing, and Clear, in a deleted scene, is mulling over being pregnant. All normal, everyday, relatable activities that are made sinister by the ever-looming specter of death. The plane is something ordinary, made extraordinary by the prevalence of preceding symbolism. The script goes on to call the plane emotionless, cold, and lifeless. It's easy to mark death as something sinister, but it is the one thing that all of existence will face at some point. Death is not personal, it's not emotional, but it is a cold and harsh reality. But to conclude these 10 pages, we get another small moment of levity. Todd asks Alex to go to the bathroom with him, saying that a 7-hour flight is not an ideal location to do so if they're trying to woo their classmates. We have to remember that these characters are teenagers, and the demises that they're about to face are very untimely, allowing us to feel sympathetic for them even if we don't necessarily like them. The symbols of death are extremely prevalent throughout these first 10 pages, but its strength lies in the foreboding atmosphere felt by our chief protagonist. The dramatic irony is palpable, and it finds terror in the mundane. These are just teenagers doing normal, ordinary teen things, but are given a sinister edge by the sound and images that surround them. Even the song choices present in the script are carefully chosen with suitable lyrics that hint at the ominous and ever-present force that is the Grim Reaper.
In death, there are no accidents. No coincidences.